Somewhere in your building this morning, a printer ran 4 pages. A manager picked them up. He walked them to a meeting room. The room had been booked the night before, under a name that does not appear on his calendar. On the other side of the door, an HR representative was already seated. The coffee in front of her had been poured 10 minutes ago. And then a calendar invite appeared on someone's screen. 15 minutes notice. No agenda. Just a meeting title that did not quite explain itself. That person did not yet know it, but their morning had just been pre-decided by a document they had not read. If this has ever happened to you, or to someone sitting near you, you remember the feeling of opening that document for the first time. The unusual quietness in the room. The careful, gentle, almost apologetic tone of the HR rep. The strange precision of the language on the page. The 30-day clock printed at the bottom. And here is what nobody ever told you about that document. The document was not written to improve your performance. It was written to document your exit. The improvement is theater. The documentation is the product. Tonight, you are going to learn to read that document the way the people who wrote it can read it. And once you can, the mechanism that runs on people not being able to read it stops working in your presence forever. Every performance improvement plan in the world contains, in some form, the same 3 components. A list of performance gaps, a set of metrics you are expected to hit, and a timeline, usually 30, 60, or 90 days. It looks on the surface like a developmental document, a second chance, a formal way of saying, "We believe in you and here is the path forward." It is, in almost every documented case, none of those things. The sociologist Robert Jackal spent years inside large corporate bureaucracies, watching how decisions are actually made. He found something unsettling. Corporations operate on what he called an appearance economy. Decisions are made privately, often early, often by people you will never meet, and then they are clothed retroactively in process. Forms, reviews, documented conversations. The forms do not produce the decision. The forms produce the appearance that the decision was produced by them. Now apply that to the document in front of you. By the time you read your PIP, the decision to remove you was almost certainly made in a room you were not in, by people whose names are not on the document. Sometimes the decision is weeks old. Sometimes months. The PIP did not create the decision. The PIP was created by the decision to wear it like a uniform. And once you understand that, the strange features of the document begin to make sense, features you may have assumed were accidents, but are not. Look at the metrics you have been given. Read them slowly. You may notice they have one or more of the following properties. They depend on a subjective judgment, a stakeholder's perception, a manager's rating, a quality of collaboration. They depend on resources you do not control, another team's response, a client's availability, a system you do not own. They are calibrated just above your historical output, so that hitting them requires not just performance but visible escalation. And critically, they can be re-explained gently at the next review if you happen to hit them anyway. This is not because the people who wrote your PIP are cruel. Most of them are sincerely convinced the targets are fair. That is the second layer. The evolutionary psychologist William von Hippel has documented how powerful organizations protect themselves from internal discomfort. They engage in collective self-deception. The HR team, the manager, the second-line reviewer, they have all quietly persuaded themselves that this is a real opportunity for improvement. They believe it. They will say it warmly. They are not lying to you. They have first lied to themselves. Because the alternative, admitting they are administering an exit through a developmental document, is a thing none of them can afford to feel. And then there is the timeline. The 30, 60, or 90 days. That clock is not the speed at which performance can plausibly improve. Performance improvement, in any real sense, takes longer than that, and you know it. The clock is calibrated to something else. It is calibrated to the legal exposure window the company carries when it lets a person go without documented justification. The PIP is the document that closes that window. The clock is not measuring your time. It is measuring the company's time. Jekyll's appearance economy. Von Hippel's sincere self-deception. The legal architecture of the timeline. Together, they form a single piece of design. And to see what kind of design it actually is, you have to look outside the office building entirely. Because this exact process, orderly, documented, sincere, designed to make the host believe in their own removal, has been running inside your own body since you were born. There is a process in your body called apoptosis. Programmed cell death. Roughly 50 to 70 billion cells inside you complete apoptosis every day. You will never notice. There will be no pain, no swelling, no fever. The cells dismantle themselves in clean, orderly stages. Their contents are packaged, broken down, and absorbed by neighboring cells. The tissue around them stays calm. The body continues unbothered. Apoptosis is one of the most elegant pieces of design in biology. And here is what makes it elegant. The cell does not fight. When the signal arrives, chemical, precise, unambiguous, the cell does not resist. It does not scream. It cooperates. It begins, voluntarily, the careful, sequential dismantling of its own machinery. It uses its own enzymes to break down its own structure. It encapsulates itself for easy removal. The cell is not destroyed by the organism. It dismantles itself on behalf of the organism because that is how the system was designed to remove it. Cells that do not cooperate with this process, that ignore the signal, that refuse to dismantle themselves, that try to keep functioning, those cells are no longer cooperating with the body's design. The medical name for cells that refuse apoptosis is cancer. Now look at your PIP again. The signal arrives. It is precise. It is documented. It is unambiguous in its function, even if its language is gentle. And the design depends entirely on one thing, that you cooperate with your own dismantling, that you accept the document at face value, that you spend the next 30, 60, 90 days using your own enzymes, your own energy, your own anxiety, your own late nights to break down your own functioning on behalf of an organism that has already decided you should be removed. Most people on a PIP do exactly this. They work harder. They take it personally. They lose sleep. They blame themselves. They accept the metrics as real and try, sincerely, to hit them. They are not failing the PIP. They are completing it exactly as designed. The PIP works because the person inside it cooperates with it. The PIP works because, just like the cell, the employee does not yet know that the signal was never about improvement. The signal was about clearance. Open the document. Read it again. With everything you now know. The first page will identify the performance gaps. The language will sound objective. It will use phrases like observed patterns, stakeholder feedback, missed expectations. None of these phrases describe an event. They describe an interpretation of events. The interpretation was made above the line of your visibility, by people you may not have access to, and the page in front of you is the first time you are seeing the conclusion. Notice what is missing. There is almost never a specific date, witness, or measurable instance attached. The vagueness is not careless. The vagueness is the design. Specific events can be disputed. Patterns cannot. Turn the page. Here are the metrics, the numbers, and the deliverables. They will feel reasonable. They were chosen to feel reasonable. Look at each one carefully and ask the question the document does not want you to ask. Who, exactly, decides whether I have hit this? In a clean metric, the answer is a number. In a PIP metric, the answer is almost always a person or a group of people exercising judgment. The metric looks objective. The evaluation is subjective. That is not a mistake. That is the only way a document like this can function. A truly objective metric could be hit, and the PIP would have to be closed. A judgment-based metric cannot be hit, only declared hit, and that declaration is held by people who are not motivated to make it. Turn the page. Here is the support structure. Regular check-ins. A mentor. Resources. This page is, of all the pages, the most carefully designed. Every check-in on this page is not a coaching session. It is a documentation event. Every conversation will be written down somewhere you cannot see. Every concern you share, every frustration you express, every time you say, "I don't think this is fair," those words become part of the file the next decision will be made from. The HR rep who is so warm in those meetings is not your confidant. She is the interface that captures your statements. She is doing her job well. Her job is not the one you think it is. Turn the last page. Here is the clock. 30 days. 60 days. 90 days. The clock will feel impossibly short. It is short on purpose. Not so you can improve, but so the document can be closed on schedule. The window for legal exposure has dates attached to it. The clock is honoring those dates, not yours. Now read the signature line at the bottom. Notice what your signature does. It does not say you agree. It says you have received and understood the document. That is the part of the design that converts you from subject of a decision into participant in a process. The instant you sign, you have entered the apoptosis. You are now inside the sequence. That is the document. That has always been the document. So let us give it the name it was never given. The appearance economy. The sincere self-deception. The legal clock. The metrics that cannot be hit. The HR interface. The signature line. All of it together, as a single engineered object. The exit blueprint. A document drafted to look like a developmental opportunity, whose actual function is to engineer a documented, deniable, legally insulated exit by inducing the employee to cooperate with their own removal. Sit with the word blueprint because it is the precise one. A blueprint is not drawn after a building has gone up. A blueprint is drawn before. It is the design that the building obeys. The document on your desk was not written in response to your performance. The document was drawn in advance. Your performance is the building. The blueprint is older than you knew. And notice what this name costs you and gives you in the same breath. It costs you the version of the story in which the PIP was a chance you failed to take. That version was never true. The blueprint was not built to be passed. It was built to be processed. But what it gives you in return is much larger. It gives you the only frame in which the document ever made sense, the frame in which it stops being a verdict on your worth and becomes a piece of corporate apoptosis, beautifully engineered, running its intended sequence. You are not failing. You are receiving a signal. And the signal is not what it says it is. And the moment you can read the signal, you no longer have to cooperate with it. Here is what changes the moment you can read the blueprint correctly. 5 things, and each of them gives you back something the process was quietly going to take. The first thing you get back is your energy. Most of the harm a PIP does to a person is not the eventual outcome. It is the 60 days of sleepless, anxious, all-night effort to satisfy a target that was designed to be unsatisfiable. That effort was your own enzymes, dismantling your own machinery on behalf of an organism that had already decided. The moment you understand the metric cannot be hit, you stop emptying yourself into it. You do your work to your own standard, not to theirs. You sleep again. The energy you were spending on a closed door is yours. The second thing you get back is your composure in the room. You stop walking into the HR meetings as if they were coaching sessions. They are not. You walk in as you would walk into a room where everything you say is being written down by a stenographer you cannot see. Polite, brief, specific, calm. You answer what is asked. You do not volunteer interpretations, frustrations, or theories about why this is happening. Those are not coaching prompts. Those are file material. The HR rep is excellent at her job, and her job is not your well-being. You can be respectful and also be a person in possession of that information. The third thing you get back is the archive. The blueprint is building a documented case in one direction. There is nothing stopping you from quietly, calmly, and without announcement maintaining your own record in the other direction. Your work, your achievements, your written communications, the compliments, the closed projects, the late-night problem you solved last quarter that the document does not mention. The blueprint runs on one-sided documentation. The single most disruptive thing a person inside it can do is also document on the other side. You are not building this for war. You are building it because the asymmetry is what makes the blueprint dangerous, and the asymmetry can be closed. The fourth thing you get back is the schedule. The document is timed to the company's exposure window, not to your life. That is the company's calendar. You have one of your own. The blueprint assumes you will exit at the end of its sequence, on its terms, in a particular state of dishevelment. There is no rule that says you have to. The professionals who navigate this best begin, quietly, to assemble their next chapter on their own clock. Conversations, applications, reach-outs, the moment they understand what the document actually is. Not because they are giving up, because they are now choosing. The exit becomes a decision, not a verdict. And exits made by decision look, sound, and land differently than exits delivered by document. And the fifth thing you get back is the largest, and most people in your position will never reach it. You stop confusing what happened with what it was. You were not bad at your job. You may have been bad at one specific thing. You may even have been excellent at all of it. None of that is what the document was responding to. The document was responding to a decision that was made for reasons of cost, reorganization, politics, fit, headcount, manager change, budget, board pressure, or any one of 15 other variables that have nothing to do with you. The blueprint puts your name on a process whose causes lived above your line of sight entirely. You were not bad. You were inconvenient. Those are completely different things. And nobody walks into the next chapter of their career carrying the word inconvenient the way they carry the word bad. Most people who receive a PIP destroy themselves trying to satisfy it. They take it as a verdict on their worth. They burn through their savings of energy, their composure, their relationships, their sleep, and at the end of the sequence they exit anyway, disheveled, humiliated, and with the file the company built about them sitting in a drawer for the next reference call. That is the large group. That is the overwhelming majority of people who have ever received this document. You are not in that group anymore. As of tonight, you are in a much smaller one, the people who can read the blueprint. And a person who can read the blueprint exits, if they have to exit, on their own legs, with their archive, on their schedule, carrying the right word about themselves, walking, not being walked out, into a next chapter that no document was ever capable of writing for them. The blueprint was never about you. It was about clearance. You are not the cell that cooperates. Not anymore. Next time. The PIP is the loudest exit a company has. It is also, in many ways, the rarest. There is another version of it, quieter, friendlier, harder to see. It does not arrive in writing. It arrives in a tone, in a meeting that has no agenda, in a sentence that begins with the words, "Have you thought about what you really want?" It is engineered to feel like your own decision. That episode is next.